Hi, my name is Yellow Killer Bee, and this is Quackshot for Sega Genesis. So I'm going to get started in a second, but I'm going to reset my controls first. And one of the things that I want to show you is that I'm playing on the standard 3-button controller, but I'm actually playing arcade style. So I'm going to be holding this side of the controller like this the whole time, which was something new for me to learn. So it's been going pretty well, but it's definitely been a learning experience. So, alright, let's get started. So it does have a story. We're going to skip that, as happens in a lot of speedruns. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But first of all, the reason that I chose Quackshot is because it was a game that I had played a lot as a kid, but never was actually able to beat. And that's something that is kind of a lot of my speedruns have in common, is they were games I really enjoyed as a kid, but it's kind of like finishing something I started as a kid to not only beat the game but learn how to speedrun it now. So one of the interesting things about this game is the movement mechanic. So you can see I'm kind of sliding along the ground, so if you press down and jump, you do this slide. And that's actually the main way to save time in this game, is just to try to slide as much as possible. Any flat surface, basically, you'll see me sliding along. And then the other mechanic in this game is there's actually weapons. You start off with just one weapon, but then you kind of gain more. In that way, it's kind of like a Metroid type game, I guess, because you were starting off with some items and then you kind of gain new items or upgrades to those items as you go. And then you put down this little flag and then you can go back to places you've been already. And so at the beginning of the game you actually do a little bit of back and forth as you kind of gain items or upgrade the items and then are able to access new parts of the game. So another mechanic here are these peppers, and we're going to be using these in order to go fast, as usual. But what happens is that it's called temper, and if you get 5 peppers, then you go fast for a little bit. And so we'll be implementing that on a couple levels, just to kind of go as quickly as possible and skip some parts. So it does have a menu where you get items and you have to use them. Menuing actually has a fairly big part, especially in the Transylvania level, which is coming up in a little bit. There's lots of switching back and forth between the items, which if you can't do it quickly, it can take a lot of extra time. So these blocks are kind of the bane of my existence. They go up and down on a set pattern, and you have to hit them at specific times. And if you hit them at the wrong time, then it's a big time loss, because you not only have to wait for them to get into the right spot, but you have to wait for them to get unfrozen. Alright, that was good. So there I shot the top one with my popcorn, which is the first time you actually see the popcorn used, and then shot the next one with my plunger as I came down. So it's kind of like I had to switch in midair. So here's another set here. Alright, we got it. Oh, maybe get up there. Okay. So I didn't get it that time. One of the things you notice me doing is shooting at the top of my jump, because you can actually get a little bit of extra height if you shoot. Okay, there we go. That can be kind of a close one there. So yeah, these can lose or gain a lot of time depending on if they're done well or not. So now we get to Goofy, and not entirely sure what he's doing in this pyramid. He's actually looking, he's also searching for treasure, and he gives you a note, which you don't actually ever look at in the speedrun, but it's kind of funny that you just braved all these traps and then he's just standing there I already did it. But the basic storyline is you found a book in your Uncle Scrooge's attic, and it told you where a treasure is, or had a treasure map, and so now you're trying to find the treasure. and you're following these clues in order to get it. And of course, along the way, you get a bunch of items and meet a lot of people. Alright, so now we're going to fly back to Duckburg, because he actually gave you an item that lets you go further in the first level. So back to Duckburg, and then we got the sticky plunger, which is really a big mechanic of this game. So now we're going to start using a combination of our slide and our sticky plunger in order to traverse this level. And I don't know if you're like supposed to be able to jump on top of the buildings. I'm assuming so, but as a kid I never really did it that way. Ooh, that was a close jump. There are some auto-scrolling type sections in this game. This is the first one. And it's not like a true auto-scroller though, because you can jump off these hooks at any time because you have to switch from one to the next. And so you can save a tiny bit of time by optimizing your jump, but you don't want to cut it too close because you can just jump off and to death, which is not good. Okay, so what we're doing here is Gyro, the inventor, gave us exploding bubblegum, which is naturally what you need if you want to explode things. And he's funny because he's like, oh, come back and come get some whenever you need some more. And it's like, did anybody ever, because this is like a pretty long level when you count both parts of it. It's like, I can just imagine kids getting desperate and like having to go all the way back here just to get more bubblegum. So I don't know if this is intended at all, because this jump is, I think I got it. There we go. That saves quite a bit of time. That turkey, that turkey that dropped gives you full health. I call them turkeys. Sometimes I call them ducks. I don't know what they actually are. Either way, it's kind of weird that you as a duck are eating other fowl, I guess. So one of the reasons like I'm trying to jump and shoot as much as possible is with the plunger, you can jump, anytime you shoot with your feet on the ground, you actually lose time because you stop. So anytime I can shoot with like and jump at the same time, that's what I'm going to try to do. Sometimes you just can't because of the timing of everything, but this bat's troll. You try to shoot up there, but it doesn't always work. Okay. Bats are trolls in every game. This game is no exception. Okay, this is the level that has all the menuing. So we're going to be switching back and forth a whole lot. And like every time the menu items are like 2 items apart from each other, so it kind of takes some concentration is what it ends up being, because you can't like press start too quickly. You gotta make sure you're holding down all the correct buttons and which item you're switching towards. I don't know. I'm still definitely getting better at the menuing part, because I've never played a game before, or sped run a game before that actually has as much menuing in this game, because usually it ends up being like an RPG or something like that that has where you have to switch your menu items and things like that. So I'm taking intentional damage here, although it's kind of risky because there's a spot up here that you can get hit twice. Basically you're taking damage on purpose right here, but then you can take additional damage if this cycle is wrong, but we're gonna sneak right ahead of it and then we're okay. And then there's a juicy, delicious roasted duck right there. And then we're doing a small skip here. Just make that jump. Okay, so this part kills a lot of runs, because what you're doing here is just riding this, which you wouldn't think is that hard, but the ghosts can actually knock you, like enemies can knock you through platforms in this game, which is really annoying because you usually will die immediately if you fall off a platform. Not here, thankfully, but generally. Generally you do. Like if you fall in water or something like that, there's no swimming, which doesn't make much sense considering you're a duck. But yeah, so what will happen most of the time is you'll actually get knocked off of the platform into water, and then it's the end of the run. So you can see here, like, I'm jumping up and down these platforms because the slide, although it's faster, is actually slower on a slope.
Dude, this is the best update AverMedia's.
Alright, so this boss can be a little bit of a troll. He's not too bad. He's got the bats, which, you know, that's kind of like a built-in negative right there. But the bat on the right, see, can escape your plunger if you don't hit him at the right time. You're trying to hit Duckula here and also both of his bat friends like that. And then the other two just fly around and don't really bother you too much. So we have 2 hits left. We should be fine. Because even if one of those guys gets away... Oh, look, I got 3 bats that time. Alright, last hit here. Slide out the door. One of the reasons this game was generally thought to be easier was because if you'll see here, like at the start of this level, I started off with 5 health, even though I ended up the last level with like 2 health. So that's one of the interesting things, is it does make it a lot easier because you don't really worry about running out of... It's kind of a difficult jump to make without getting hurt. So yeah, if I would have started this level with the same amount of health that I would finish the last level with, then I would be completely dead, but it is generous and gives you health. So this level is really simple in a speedrun, but in a casual playthrough, like when I did my first casual playthrough, this level took me forever because it's a maze and it doesn't really make any sense. You're just going through random doors hoping that you get the right combination. At least it never made any sense to me. Okay, so we're going to take intentional damage, get through these guys, and then we're on to our next boss fight. So this is a little weird. We're going to switch to our popcorn and try to get a perfect boss fight here. We got it. Alright. Switching back to our plunger. So, yeah, we found out now that Tiger's weakness is popcorn. So just keep that in mind if you ever happen to go on safari. And on to Egypt. So here we're going to see more peppers. And also, the sliding mechanic works in the quicksand. I wouldn't recommend trying that at home. Oh, okay. We need to get that guy. I don't know if we can actually get back here. Maybe I can get another pepper from this guy. Here, let's see. No, he doesn't want to give me another pepper. Maybe this guy? This guy? No. Okay, we'll just go without it. Well, he gave me a turkey, which is nice because I kind of ran out of health. So we're going to be using the key that we got from the Maharaja. And this is kind of an interesting level. This shows off a mechanic that they use later in the game too, where you have to manipulate or use these moving platforms in order to get to the next part of the level. There's a little trick. You can actually jump up a ladder until you're at the top of it. So you use your plungers, because ladder climbing is really slow, and you can't jump up a ladder or anything like you can in some games. Like, once you're on a ladder, you're pretty much stuck. That jump's a little tricky. Alright. A lot of this game does have, like, to do with momentum. Like, these platforms, if you don't land right in the center, it's pretty easy to lose or gain momentum. So like this one, if you want to end your slide like right as the edge of the ramp comes up, because then you get a little boost. And the same thing going down. I believe there's still more to be discovered as far as movement in this game, because especially with the slides, like there's just some strange things that happen sometimes that I believe could be utilized to go faster. But yeah, there is probably, I don't know how many active runners of this game there are, but there's about 7 leaderboard times. So this we're skipping. This is actually, that's supposed to be a puzzle where you have to press those blocks on the ground in order, but we just skip it. If you go up the wall fast enough, then you don't have to do it. So this is Minecart section. Again, kind of an auto-scroller. There's 2 Minecart sections. This one's the longer one for sure. But not exactly an auto-scroller, because you can actually jump at the end. Oh, I almost fell out of the minecart there. You can actually jump at the end and jump however early you want to, and hopefully you can end up in the minecart at the end. Because the minecart hitboxes are fairly generous. So now we're on to the South Pole. And the South Pole is pretty straightforward. Some of these enemies can kind of troll you, but in general it's just like a lot of up and down slopes and killing enemies. But the first half of this is fairly short. You get to slide down this thing, which is fun. I don't know how that works. Physics. Alright, and then we're using our staff to melt the ice to get the Viking key. And then we gotta go up to the Viking ship. So this is actually one of the tougher platform levels as far as actually movement based. And like these archers can really troll you if you can't, if you don't make some of these jumps more exactly, and then there's always could be arrows and bombs coming from behind. But fortunately, this game is very lenient on your health. Like it tends to give you a lot of health, and then, but unfortunately, unlike some other games, like it's really difficult to save time by taking damage. There's some parts where you do, because it would take more time to avoid it, but like when you take damage, you tend to stop short, which makes it not ideal for boosting through things. Like I also run Mickey Mania, and that if you take damage, you just, like, there's no physical effect at all. Alright, so you can skip this Viking with a good jump. We didn't get it, but that's alright. Like you just ignore him and don't talk to him, and then he feels sad. Alright, so this is fairly short level actually. And then we can get down this ladder. Ladders are the, like, I don't know if you know about doors in SMW and how hard they are to get into. Okay, now I gotta switch to popcorn. So this is like, it's not necessarily an unintended way to do the boss, but it's definitely kind of like a cheesy way to do the boss. I didn't come up with this strat, but a lot of the beginning strategies I took from the world record holder, which is currently Tenebrae. Oh, and that's it. Alright. So now we talk to him, and he had told you that he had this diary, but he didn't because he's a liar. But at least he gives you the green plunger, which then we're going to be able to use to traverse farther into the South Pole. So this screen was open anyway, but it was just like a huge pit over nothing. And now we are going to be riding this bird across the pit using our new green plunger, which can stick to the ceiling. So just another example of an area which was previously available, but you couldn't do anything yet. And this is kind of like the true auto-scroller, and there's 2 of these bird riding sections. So this is like a good time for donations or things like that because there's not really a lot going on. I mean, I feel like they could have made it a little harder to dodge everything, especially during the second bird riding sequence. Like you can just stay in one spot the whole time and not even get hit, So now this level has my favorite sound effect in the game. Right there. I don't even know why, I just love it so much. And these guys are a funny, like, enemy, because they're really difficult to even get hit by. And if you are getting hit by them, most of the time you're dead because you fall in the water anyway. So it's almost like they're just there for the ambiance, which I love. Okay, so coming up in this part is the hardest trick in the game. And the biggest skip. Like, this skip saves quite a bit of time. So you're supposed to come out this section, but I'm going to go in this section anyway. And I actually came up with this setup. What I'm doing is I'm holding down and tapping right, trying to move 1 pixel at a time. Because you have to be in a very specific spot to get that bubble to take care of that block of ice. So the previous world record, or the previous runners, they did a different setup where you'd like jump and then press left and right very quickly, and it wasn't very consistent. And it's always hard when you're coming into a game and you're more than halfway through and then there's a trick that might ruin the whole run. So now here's our second bird riding thing. So yeah, as far as the skip, I guess I was just happy because I hadn't been playing the game very long when I found it, and I was just happy to be able to contribute something. Like, it's always exciting to be able to say I actually helped the other speedrunners, even though I'm a fairly new runner to the game. And of course, anything that you can help a run be more consistent. But I think it's probably quicker too. It's definitely more consistent and probably faster. Alright, so here's the second minecart, and this one you can jump out of these carts like almost immediately. Whoops, I wasn't supposed to jump out of that one. That was just swag, I guess. Extra jumping. Alright, this is probably the hardest section in the entire game. That's like not a skip. Just because these are on specific timers, and if you miss one, it can be bad. Like, I went a little too slow, so I missed the cycle. So, like, that's how close it is. Ooh, that was close. And you're just kind of jumping into nowhere, which can also be really scary. That jump. Alright, we made it. So there's definitely, like, a setup for how that should be done. Okay, and then there's one more skip right here. And this is just to skip this little maze portion. You just run off this edge and duck. And then you can actually slide in the air. And that just skips going, like, down and around. Because that's supposed to be, like, a trick. Where you, like, fall down there and fall right into a hole. Which is great. Okay, so this boss, you just kind of have a cycle for. You try to manipulate him into going the way that you want by standing in certain spots. A lot of the bosses in this game tend to, like, have a lot of, okay. Tend to have, like, a lot of RNG, but also, like, a lot of hits. Like, you have to hit them so many times, especially the very final boss. Okay, which way are you going? Luckily, you can hit them off screen. Even when you can't see them, you still can hit them. So he has like 2 different heights here. He decided to go with the top, the more uppermost height. Alright, we should be able to hit him another time here, as long as he cooperates. No, he went down. So yeah. A lot of his movement is kind of random, although it is, you know, somewhat manipulable if you get fortunate enough to... Okay, he's done. So now he gives you a diary, and then you look at it, and then they're like, let's dip it in water, which is obviously a great idea, to dip a book in water. Okay, last level. So this level has actually one of the only noticeable version differences between the 2 versions of the game. And unfortunately for me, my version is the lesser of the 2. A lot of the other runners have a version where you actually get life later, but I don't have that version, so I take a little detour to get some extra health there. These are actually really scary because the death plane for that fall is like right underneath these boards, so you don't get any extra time at all. If you start to fall on the boards, you pretty much die immediately. So yeah, in my personal opinion, the second to last level is actually the hardest. Like, this level is not as difficult. So there would be a turkey and a bunch of other stuff right here if I had the right version of the game. But instead I just take a little detour earlier and get some extra health. And I think for a marathon I would do that for sure. Even if in normal runs I was to the point where I wasn't doing it, I think it's definitely best for marathon safety. So these you just have to wait for these cycles, but it also means it's really important not to miss any cycles. Like right here, that jump is really important. If you miss that, then you lose lots of time. And then this part, it's a little scary when you play this game casually because it's just like invisible platforms. But from a speedrunning standpoint, it's pretty simple. And now we're at the end boss. And this guy, there's also a skip for. So you interrupt his little sword throwing process. Oh, we didn't get it. We gotta try that again. Luckily, if you don't get it, you can give it another shot. You have to interrupt his sword throwing process at the right time. And then you just basically shoot bubbles at him until he dies. But it's nice because the timing corresponds with his idle animation, which is this right there. So as soon as he like starts doing his idle animation and then moves his eyes, that's like the visual cue to shoot another bubble at him. So you can kind of keep him stunned in this damaged state. Because he'll throw his sword out at you and then it like comes back, and that's how the normal fight goes, but we're just delaying that whole process by keeping him damaged because the sword doesn't move very much. So we'll get hit here, but that's okay. That's it. So, you've gone through all this, you're looking for the treasure, and you finally find it. It's such a good day. It's just a plain stone figurine of a duck princess. How disappointing. And then you get back home to your girlfriend, and she's like, where's my present? Because she's so nice. And he's like, here it is. Come on, nephews. She's like, is that all? Because she's a terrible person. And then your nephews, luckily, are really clumsy, so they drop this thing that you just did all this work for, and it happens to have a necklace inside. All is well with the world. Anyway, that's Quackshot. I hope that you enjoyed this run, and thanks for considering it for SGDQ.